Okay, so we got another hour-long drive here to work. Another video. Okay, so we know one of the major issues holding back the paintball industry right now is obviously Google and Facebook. We can't do anything about that. Okay, for you guys that don't know, in my opinion, one of the worst things to happen to paintball, except for the next thing I'm going to talk about, ramping, is in August of 2014, Google and Facebook basically started this anti-violent weapons campaign, and they lumped paintball into it. Okay, so they lumped paintball into it. The ramifications of that have been pretty severe to the paintball industry. You took already a paintball industry that had been an industry that had been hurting, and then you basically don't allow them to advertise. You don't allow them to advertise, and you don't allow them to market their products online, and then you dumb down their results on purpose because you think that it's violent. I don't know. It's been pretty significant. I've played paintball since 1988. Okay, regularly since 1988. In my opinion, the absolute number one most devastating thing that has happened in paintball was ramping. Paintball had 20 years of probably approaching double-digit growth until ramping was introduced. Ramping was introduced around 2006. Okay, so 2 years before I started, 86. 87 it grew, 88 it grew, 89 it grew, 90 it grew, 91 it grew, 92, 93, 94, 96, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000 it grew. Double-digit increases every single year. 2001 it continued to grow. 2002 it continued to grow. 2003 it continued to grow. 2004 continued to grow. 2004 huge trade shows, 150, 175 vendors, 25, 30 different manufacturers of paint, massive amounts of people coming to the trade shows. Look up 2004 NPPL. That was right here in Tampa. Look how huge that trade show was. Okay, massive trade shows, massive amounts of people playing it. Okay, huge amounts of people. 2005 it grew. 2006 ramping gets introduced. Okay, 2006 ramping gets introduced. I believe you had the Angel that had it, but it wasn't allowed. For the most part, I think it was the Smart Parts Nerve that really was the first gun that came with, a stock ramping board. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I know the Angel had it, but the Angel didn't have eyes when they came out, when they first came out with ramping, and if you put on the ramping mode, it just turned it into a blender. But I think, in my opinion, the gun that had the technology, that had the eyes and everything like that, was the Nerve. And if you guys can think of one that was made earlier than that was for, that you didn't have to put an aftermarket board into, post it down below. Not 100% sure, but it seemed like when ramping came out around 2006, this is when the rules started changing. I think 2006 or 2007 was when the PSP started allowing ramping. Okay. And then so that right there, you could tell all of a sudden the growth in paintball hit a standstill. And then 2008, 2009, 2010, you started seeing ramping being used out on the scenario fields, the woods ball fields, and then, by around 2010, everybody was doing it. And since then, every single year, the sport has contracted, okay? Every single year. Now, you can say that there was recessions and the economy has gone up and gone down every single year. People are always going to look for an escape, and that's what paintball has always been for a lot of people. It's always an escape. It's a place to go. Your week sucks, you go out there in the morning on Saturday, have a blast, and you go back home. Okay, it's a stress relief. And for stress releases, if they're good ones, a lot of times they don't really get hit with the recessions as badly as some other things. Okay, but we had, let's go through some of the recessions, at least that I knew of. 1999, 2000, you had the dot-com bubble. 2001, you had 9/11. You had the housing crisis, 2008, the housing crisis in the mid-2000s. Then you had the Great Recession, 2008 to 2009. I know all those very, very well. I starved, like a lot of other people, starved and rolled pennies through those times. But you know, we're right now, luckily paintball is getting small enough now that if they want to rebuild it, and they can, because in the 80s, they grew the sport in the 80s, and they didn't have the internet, they didn't have the incredible level of safety protection and safety equipment that we have now. Look at the masks that they make now versus the masks they made a long time ago. You know, the Vince Predator, which isn't even allowed to be used anymore. I used to love that mask. You know, clipped in the back and shit. But look at the technology that's in the equipment right now, the safety equipment. I remember like padded knees didn't even start coming out until, was it like 2006, 2007? I think excessive, the first excessive pants that came out were one of the first pants that I've ever seen that had like padded knees on it, you know, and that was only maybe 10 years ago. God, I remember when those things first came out, you know, the first excessive pants, maybe, what, 2005, maybe 2006, somewhere around there. You know, now you've got knee pads, knee protection, which we didn't have, you know, which I never saw for the first 20 years I played paintball. We used to use like wrestling knee pads and volleyball knee pads and shit like that. Now you've got amazing knee pads being made by, you know, Planet Eclipse, which are my personal favorites, and Dye and stuff like that. So, you know, the safety equipment is there to regrow the sport that wasn't there in the 80s. And so, you know, now you've got better technology, you've got extremely reliable paintball guns, you've got extremely reliable loaders, extremely safe and reliable HPA tanks and stuff like that. I mean, so the opportunity is there to regrow paintball. You know, prices of paint have gone down significantly. The sport is safer, you know, with the airball fields, or you know, for competition wise. I mean, you got to remember the reason why they came out with the airball fields was because the players that were playing paintball were getting faster and faster. It was getting more competitive, and you can't have people going at a full sprint through the woods. And I mean, as you can see, watch the video of me, the pump world record where I basically scorpioned almost had a full sprint. You know, that's the whole reason why they came out with the airball fields. But anyway, if paintball is going to regrow itself, you know, if it's going to get itself back off the ground, it's got to get rid of ramping. And I know a lot of people, well, Mike's a hypocrite. Mike uses ramping too. Yeah, well, I also use an arrow gun, right? Didn't I use an arrow gun? Well, I also used a Tippmann C3 propane pump gun. Okay, how come nobody's using a C3 pump gun? How come nobody, you know, how come there's like 8 people using an arrow gun? Right? Okay, so don't come back, well, Mike uses ramping, so he's a hypocrite. Well, I'm right now driving at about 80 miles an hour because everyone else is driving at 80 miles an hour, okay? It's what you know, you go out to play paintball, you need a gun that ramps. You got 25 people shooting at you with ramping. There's only one Sonny Lopez who can use a pump in that situation, you know? The rest of us who suck have got to use ramping to ramp back. But we've got to get rid of ramping across the board. In my opinion, you've got to get rid of ramping. It's being abused. It's people just don't want to go out and get shot 25 times a game. They don't want to go out and get blown apart and then have to go to work and explain to their boss why they've got welts all over their head, neck, and arms and stuff and look like they have leprosy. You know, when the paintball was growing from 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, you could play on a Saturday and go home with like 8 welts on you. Okay, now you get 8 welts a game. And no one wants that shit, you know. No one wants that shit, you know. And you know, so you want, you know, if they genuinely want paintball to grow, all they have to do is look at the map. Okay, pretend I'm crazy. Pretend that I'm absolutely out of my mind, and just look at how paintball grew without ramping, and then look at how paintball has shrunk since ramping. That's, you know, look at the growth from when I started playing, from 88 to around 2006. Look how much paintball grew through recessions, through all kinds of stuff. It continued to grow every single year. And then look at, ever since ramping has been introduced and has been accepted and has been widespread, look at how much it shrank. And here's something else. You know, people are like, well, the paint manufacturers don't want ramping to go away because they sell more paint. Well, when there wasn't ramping, we had like 25 of them. We had like 25 paint manufacturers. Now we have like 3. So I don't see how they're selling more paint. There's hardly anybody playing it now. So how are they selling more paint? You know, so I don't get that part. I don't get that part. If you could triple the amount of people that are in it, right now, by getting rid of ramping and having a lot of people come back, and being able to reach out to more of a different demographic, maybe you can start getting more girls and women to play. I don't see that logic of well, the paint manufacturers are selling more paint right now. I don't think that's true at all. I really don't think that's true at all. They wouldn't be suing each other right now if they were selling more paint. So that's my rant on on ramping. It's just, I think it's been a curse inside of paintball. We finally had the technology to have the gun shoot that fast and do it without breaking paint, but I think it ran a lot of people off. But do the math. Look at the trade show in 2004. I've got a Tampa MPPL video, and look how huge that trade show was compared to the ones that we have now. The ones that we have right now are like a flea market in comparison, and we have less people in it right now, and I think it really boils down to ramping. But I don't know. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think.